Okay, so first of all, Shiv, I was looking through a little bit about the recent campaigns, and I actually used to, when I was at the Financial Times, cover Coke. And marketing. I mean, it was all about branding. It's the brand that is the value of Coca-Cola. And in my experience having covered Coke, then I of course had to cover Pepsi as well. So I was looking at one of the recent campaigns. It's called Live for Now. It's a global campaign. In the U.S., it's called Pepsi Pulse. That's sort of the digital embodiment of that, right? Tell me, what does this campaign? What's the story that it's trying to tell about Pepsi?
Yeah, it's actually an extremely exciting time for Pepsi, and I think this is it's really an amazing moment because firstly, this isn't just a campaign; it's a new positioning for Pepsi, and it's a new global positioning for Pepsi, and it's built off of an incredible amount of research that was done over the last 9 months, literally in every continent, in every major country, really going deep and understanding Pepsi consumers, what they care about, the health of the Pepsi brand, and then translating that into a positioning. So the heart of the positioning is all about the excitement of now. So what we discovered through this immense amount of research is that of the 8 to 9 billion people that there are in the world, there's something like 2 billion that really live and breathe in something that we labeled now culture. They're the folks who lean forward in life, who grab life by the horns, who live more in the moment and try to get the most out of life than other people. And we realized that these people, firstly, they heavy index as Pepsi drinkers. And then we also discovered that as more people see them and act like them and get inspired by them, they themselves live life more to the fullest.
What are their characteristics?
So in a room like this, they would typically be the folks who are leaning forward. They're the ones who, when they get an SMS from a friend at 3 p.m. on a boring Thursday afternoon saying, just get out of the office, let's grab a drink, will probably get out of the office and go grab a drink. And they're the people who will try new things a lot more. They're the type of people who will switch their careers more often. They're the type of people who will really just explore more, treat their day as if it has 48 hours in it versus 24 hours. They live more in a sense. Okay. So we discovered this is a really important, it's not a demographic, it's both a demographic, it's a psychographic, it's a behavioral target, it's a global target, and we saw that Pepsi drinkers are very much like them. Most Pepsi drinkers are in that category, and that it presented an opportunity to re-envision the positioning for Pepsi and to inspire and invite more people to join that world. So that's why it's called Excitement of Now. The tagline is Live for Now. It's a global new positioning that's landed first in the United States. There are a lot of amazing different facets to it. And the digital piece is Pepsi Pulse, which is all about fundamentally inspiring and inviting people to live life to their fullest. Yeah.
What is it that they want to see in the brand, though? And what is it that resonates with them? And then what do they reject?
Yeah. So, it's fascinating. I mean, working on Pepsi, and it's incredibly humbling every day. So there are few things that are constants with Pepsi. And when we as the marketers move away from that, our consumers slap us on the wrist, or rather, punch us with their wallets, and then we're like, oh gosh, how could we have been so stupid? So at the heart of that is Pepsi has always been about pop culture, whether it's been curating, leading, influencing, participating. It's always been about pop culture. So Pepsi Pulses serves as a cheat sheet on pop culture. When we look at pop culture specifically, it's always been about entertainment, music, and then more and more recently with technology and design as well. What we know through an incredible amount of research over the last few decades, when people think about music, and if they're asked to think about brands, 9 times out of 10, the first brand that they think about is Pepsi. And it's just wide in people's brains. And this is because of the long legacy we have of working with artists, giving them a big stage, doing things with them, whether it's Britney Spears or Michael Jackson
there's a
or Ray
legacy there.
Charles.
Yeah.
There's a legacy there. So when our consumers think about Live for Now and what we're doing with them, as long as we stay true to, entertainment and music, and to what these consumers are and how they're living life to the fullest, we know we're on to something good. And that's what Live for Now embodies. Yeah.
How do you measure success, though? How do you measure that what you're doing and you're connecting to these consumers actually is creating ROI?
So we're in the beverage business. We're not in the entertainment business. We're not in the social media business. We're not in the digital business. ROI for us means very simply two things: driving brand equity and driving cases. As simple as that. And there's a very specific relationship between driving equity and driving sales or cases. The way we're measuring it in this case is it's a multifaceted measurement, I'd say, infrastructure we put in place. But I can talk about the digital pieces. So with Pepsi Pulse, it's the digital embodiment of this whole program. It's embodied in a lot of different places, but you see it on Pepsi.com, which ironically or amusingly gets more traffic than a lot of websites on which we've historically bought advertising even. And really
like what, for instance?
Sorry?
You're saying that actually Pepsi.com gets more hits, right, than on other websites that you've advertised on.
Yeah.
So like what?
Not
website?
Bloomberg or Financial Times, just to be clear. I don't want to name the websites.
We would welcome a Pepsi on Bloomberg.com.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be unfair to the websites, but I will say I wasn't referencing. No, but so the point is it's a heavily trafficked website. And what we have with Pepsi Pulse is in real time, several times an hour, the top 10 pop culture trending stories are surfaced on Pepsi.com. And it's top 10 trending based on social media conversations, but based also on clicking data, and what stories people are clicking on. Where it gets very interesting is we use this, and this is used as a way to inspire people to participate in conversations, to sort of penetrate news feeds. Digital marketing is increasingly about penetrating news feeds and, I'd say, Twitter streams. It does that. And the way we measure all of this is in a few different areas. One is we have our traditional brand equity ways of measuring the brand equity, and that's survey-driven. But we've actually added something new and pretty unique, and to the best of my knowledge, it's the first that any major brand has done, which is we're using social media conversations on scale to measure brand equity. So we know, so for example, when I say brand equity, there are 5 things we're measuring against. It's things like refreshment cues, is this a brand I love, stuff like that are very much tied to the actual product. We analyze the hundreds of thousands of conversations that include Pepsi in any given month and see what percentage of those conversations embody those brand equity measures, and then compare that to what our competitors are seeing as well. So that's
interesting.
Yeah. So what Pepsi Pulse does behind the scenes is fueling those measures. So that's how it's driving brand equity. Yeah.
So which social media platform or what type of social media platform is most effective for that?
It's not about the platforms anymore, I feel. It's really about the conversation layer above it. It matters less on which platform it's happening or playing. That we leave our consumers to pluck the content and carry with them and take it there. The interesting challenge, though, for us, and this is where when we talk about digital or even storytelling, things become very hard, is it's very easy to talk about how cool and exciting all of this stuff is, but it's easy to forget at the same time that it's so hard to do this on scale. And that's, for us as a brand, that's what I sweat about the most. I have amazing confidence in my team, and we as a brand, whether it's Pepsi or the rest of the portfolio, know how to do good marketing, because we're doing it a lot for a long time. But to do it on scale in a world that isn't just about, passive media consumption becomes much harder.
Because if you try to do it on scale, the risk is that you lose control, right?
It's very expensive to do on scale. And
that's built in. That would be
Yeah.
very. But it's also that it's harder to is it harder to control and drive that conversation or to.
Yeah.
Am I on that right track?
I think to a certain extent, but I'm a little less worried about the control because I think, we live in an age where consumers and users will form their own opinions, live their lives the way they want to, criticize or influence or advocate the way they want to. And that's fine. One has to accept that. That's what life is today, and brands have to participate in that. What's much more scary is to be ignored. The last thing you want is not to be noticed, not to be ignored, or to be a bland brand that no one cares about. Because when you become a bland brand, then you have to spend a lot more just to fight for that attention. So that's what, so we want to do innovative things on scale that then create advocates that do the marketing for us. Because even though, a lot of people may say we have large budgets, for the number of consumers we need to reach, our budgets are actually pretty small, and it's really challenging.
Shiv, within Pepsi, Pepsi, and again, from having covered the soft drinks industry, really your companies are marketing companies. Everybody is a marketer. But has it been difficult or challenging internally in Pepsi to get people on board with what you're talking about with storytelling and branding?
I would say, I'd say at times it's actually very difficult. And the reason for that is more than a marketing company, we're a sales and a distribution company. We could do the most phenomenal marketing, but if we're not in every street corner, we've got a massive problem. So when we think about, organizational effort and resources, much more goes towards sales and distribution to our customers than it actually goes towards marketing. And then within marketing, it's, we're always fighting for the percentage that's in digital, and then the percentage that goes to true storytelling versus promotion-driving activity. So our bottler system will tell us how to market, and they have their own favorite ways. Our customers will tell us what to do all the time or what they want us to do. Typically, neither of those build brand equity as well as we'd like or help us tell the stories that we want to. And they certainly don't talk about digital at all.
Well, so what's been most difficult internally then to try to align everybody behind your strategy?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing for me is, and it's both a strength and a weakness, I think, at PepsiCo Beverages, and this plays across all our brands, not just Pepsi, is we're always about trying new. We ourselves embody that live for now positioning. We lean forward, we want to try new things, we want to get the most out of life, we want to get the most out of marketing in a sense. The challenge is, on the flip side, we don't often stay the course long enough. And I think, especially when we think about, the narrative for a brand and the role that a brand plays and building brand equity over time, you have to stay the course. You have to hold true and let something live and breathe for a while before saying, oh, it doesn't work, or this is the next shiny thing, let me go jump.
Why is that difficult? Why is that difficult for you to convince those around you, though, to stay the course? Why is that?
I think we have ADD. I don't know. I know it's difficult. I think it's because we like to try something new, because we have it's a challenging time, so we make snap decisions. And then most importantly, we're a public company. Our business is measured, well, not just quarter to quarter, but week to week.
I was going to say, it must be, you have monthly sales numbers, you have quarterly, targets you have to meet. So perhaps that's where that impatience comes from then.
Yeah, absolutely. That plays a big role.
talking about trying to stay the course, I want to talk about one story that's gotten a lot of attention in light of Facebook, which is, and has to do with advertising and branding, which is General Motors. And, talking about staying the course, they didn't. And they went from $10 million on Facebook to zero. And a lot of people in the advertising industry that we've talked to in our program have said, they've made a mistake, that they didn't measure the influence effectively enough. And I want to get your take on GM.
Yeah, so does anyone here work for GM? Okay. Second question.
So we're safe.
Does anyone here know people who work at GM and close family members, friends? Well, I apologize in advance, for my upcoming obnoxiousness. I'm sorry, but I really don't understand what they did and what they're doing. And the reason why I say that, and this is something I talk about in my book too, is, when you look at marketing on Facebook, it's so important to recognize that if you're not doing paid advertising, you're getting zero scale. And it's not like a lot in the press talked about that GM has, I think, 4 million likes on Facebook. They're going to spend some obscene number creating content for them and stuff like that. But any single post on Facebook, not more than 10 or 15% of your fan base is seeing. So of their 4 million, they're spending a lot of money to reach, 500,000 people. Mm. For GM to market effectively digitally, you can't be just reaching for 500,000 people. You need to reach a lot more. So by saying they're not advertising on Facebook, but are still going to be spending a lot of money on creating content, I feel that they're not maybe I'm wrong, but they may not be understanding how Facebook actually works. Facebook works very simply that to get scale, you have to spend with them. Now, occasionally, you may break through regardless, but their algorithm is designed that you can't get into everyone's news feed unless you're doing on scale. So that's my first issue with it. My second issue with it is I feel we do a fair bit on Facebook, and we measure it, and we see good results. And in fact, Miller Brown just, I think, introduced or released a study today that showed how brands in general see good results. So I can't understand the rationale around why they're pulling money without talking about, is it not delivering for them or not?
Right, so you're puzzled by what were the metrics they were using for success?
Yeah, what drove it? And instead, I think a better question for them may have been to raise is whether display advertising, which is more emotional, more visual, versus social advertising or social communication, which is arguably word-based or written-based, is more effective for the way they're trying to market. And if that had been a rationale, I'd have understood it. I'd say I may not have agreed with it, but I'd have understood it. But just to have a snap decision like that seemed unusual to me.
Well, but it raised another question that I've heard is, are there some brands, no matter how big they are, they just don't work on social media? They don't work on Facebook?
I mean, I would say that if a brand doesn't work in social media, a brand doesn't work, period. I mean, social media is about connecting with people. It's where people talk on scale, and there's a historical record, and you can connect with them. If your brand can't find a place to emotionally connect with them.
But think of a GE, for instance. Do they need to be influencing people on social media?
Well, I would say, and good point, maybe there's a caveat there, consumer brands, absolutely. B2B brands, the dynamics of influence still play a very big role, but that doesn't necessarily have to be on social media. If you're, I don't know, GE Aeronautics, and there are 10 decision makers around the world who control, 500 million in spending or 40 billion in the next aircraft, you go influencing them in person. Take them out to as many dinners as you can. You do not need to connect with them on social. I don't recommend that. But for a consumer brand, like with Mountain Dew or Pepsi, we're touching, hundreds of millions of people. We need to. I can't take them out for dinner. Yeah.
You would have to have a very big budget.
Yes.
Now, you've been, as I mentioned, at Razorfish for 12 years, so you were working with clients like Pepsi or other major Fortune 500 companies. So what's the difference between working on the outside and now working on the inside?
I think the biggest difference is it's sort of like when you're working on the outside, you never truly see the successes or truly see the failures. So what I mean by that, so 4 days ago, we created a video, a 4-minute video for Pepsi Max with Kyrie Irving, the NBA rookie, and it was a really fun, cool video, and a 4-minute video, and we put it on YouTube. And within 3 days, it's gotten over 2 million views. It's just exploded. We didn't do anything to support it. And in fact, I can't understand why we didn't. That was actually a miss on our part, that we should have been supporting it from the get-go, but didn't. But regardless, it was just awesome content, and it's sort of like just exploded. It's doing extremely well. It's probably up to 3 million by the end of today. It's just great content. It's entertaining. It's in sync with the Pepsi Max brand. It's working. Now, I'm going to the Effie's Awards tonight, which are, the industry advertising awards. And I'm pretty certain I'm going to see other examples like that, and they're going to be recognized for winning, for just great marketing, it's going to be referred to. That's all well and good. But the truth of the matter is, the 4 million views don't equal brand equity or cases selling. I don't know, they may. But I won't know that for another month. And my point is that when you're on the outside, you measure the tactics and you pat yourself back on the tactics without knowing the true business impact.
The true results then.
Yeah. So my team and everyone else in the building that touched this initiative, we're not high-fiving as yet. We're happy. We're like, okay, we're sleeping deeply tonight. But we're not high-fiving as yet. We're going to high-five when we see the sales numbers come in or the brand equity, shift. Now, when you're on the agency side, you don't look at it through that lens. You're not given the opportunity, in fairness, to look at it through that lens. So I'd say that's the biggest difference for me. You have a more holistic view of what's actually working and driving your business than when you do on the agency side.
So you think that if you were that's been one area that's been lacking. If you were on the agency side, not seeing those results, and then so should that change then?
I think and I think the pressure's on the clients and the brands to share more of their business so that the agencies can do better work for them.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd say that's the biggest thing. The other really big difference is when you're on the agency side, you typically know what the brand should do, but you only control so much. When you're on the brand side, you know what can be done. You typically have the ability to do it, but there's also so much more pressure that it becomes a lot harder. It becomes an executional challenge versus a strategic one, and that's a shift. Yeah.
So which do you prefer?
Oh, brand. Well, I love Pepsi. Got a little Pepsi plug there. No question, the brand side. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's making me grow older sooner than I'd like. But yes, definitely.
Biggest mistake you would say that you learned from having at your time at Pepsi?
Oh, they're daily mistakes. I sort of don't know where to begin. They're always, we learn as we go along. I think the mistake, and this is sort of maybe a character thing, is the mistake I sometimes make is when something's working, I don't double down on it quick enough. And that's happened I think, on 2 different occasions. So I'd say that's one piece. The second piece, and this is again, is I think my agency roots influence me, affect me, is focusing more on the quick win versus the journey. So like, I'm about to lap into my 3rd Pepsi Super Bowl planning session. And as we enter that planning, it's very important that we think about not just that 6-week Super Bowl window, but what that influences over the next 2 quarters. But historically, we just say, we got to win Super Bowl, and then we move on to the next initiative. So I think taking the long view is I think, really important.
Speaking about the Super Bowl, GM as well has pulled out of the Super Bowl. You mentioned.
I think I've spoken enough about GM.
I know.
Someone here said they had a family member.
Yeah. You mentioned two occasions though earlier. So can you describe, in detail one of those occasions where you and what you learned exactly from that?
Oh, do I have to? I think sort of one occasion where I'd say where we didn't maybe double down on a success quickly enough, and we still got great results, was with the X Factor. So, for Pepsi, we were, anchor sponsors, anchor partners for the X Factor, the American Idol competitor. And we launched this really cool social TV application called Pepsi Sound Off. First of its kind. It was really about, having real-time conversations around the X Factor on this platform. It integrated with, Facebook and Twitter really well. There was a leaderboard, you'd get points based on the quality of conversations and how others would respond to it. And the really neat thing about it is every week the person who was at the top of the leaderboard, their comment and their name would be put in a Pepsi commercial the next week. So think about connecting digital to TV. Really unusual and exciting. Worked really well for us. I feel we could have scaled it up a lot more aggressively. We actually did use it, the same platform during the Super Bowl, but in not as big a way as we could have. Yeah, that's an example.
Okay. I'm going to wrap this up with Shiv, but you'll hear more from him when we have all of our 3 panelists on here for a Q&A. So thank you, Shiv, for sitting with us here for the one-on-one interview.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.